Emily Carter stepped through the tall glass doors of Carter and Company, her heels clicking softly against the marble floor. She looked like any other fresh intern, neatly dressed, a little nervous, clutching a notepad and coffee she didn't really want. But behind that ordinary exterior was a truth no one around her knew: Emily was the CEO's daughter. At 22, she wasn't spoiled or careless, but she had lived a life of comfort. For her final university project in sociology, she had chosen something bold: to go undercover as an intern in her father's company and explore the lives of women in the workforce. Her father, a towering presence in the corporate world, hesitated at first. But eventually, he gave his blessing, with one strict rule: no one must know who she really was. And so, Emily became Emma Lane, unpaid intern in the operations department, a space far removed from the corner offices and high-level meetings. She was just another name on the roster, expected to make copies, take notes, and stay out of the way. As she walked through the open-plan office, she noticed the rhythm of the place: the busy women moving with purpose, phones ringing, files stacked high, laughter in short bursts, eyes weary but determined. Emily had entered thinking she'd simply observe and take notes for her paper. But the longer she stood among them, the more she realized she wasn't here to study them, she was about to learn from them in ways no classroom ever could. By her second day, Emily had started settling into the rhythm of the office. Though most people barely noticed her, a few kind smiles and casual greetings began to warm her presence. At lunch, unsure where to sit, she carried her tray into the bustling cafeteria and quietly chose a table near the back. To her surprise, 3 women joined her, women who worked in departments often overlooked. Latasha, a sharp-witted executive assistant raising 2 kids on her own; Nina, the warehouse floor coordinator who always seemed tired but kind; and Priya, a soft-spoken data clerk who'd immigrated just 2 years earlier and still juggled night classes. The conversation at that table wasn't filtered or formal. They talked about real life: daycare disasters, rent hikes, sick relatives, missed dreams, and small wins. They shared stories between bites, laughed through exhaustion, and offered each other support with a grace Emily hadn't expected. Emily mostly listened. She had never heard women speak this way in her social circle, so raw, resilient, and real. There were no complaints for sympathy, only facts shared with strength. Latasha joked about her ex like it was stand-up comedy. Nina folded a napkin with one hand while texting her son's nurse with the other. Priya shared how she cried when she first saw snow but didn't tell her parents; they were already worried enough. Emily sat among them, quietly absorbing their world. She came in thinking she was here to observe strength. But now, she was beginning to feel it, firsthand. It was a Wednesday afternoon when the atmosphere in the office suddenly shifted. Emily was filing documents near the front desk when Nina's phone rang. She answered calmly at first, but her face quickly turned pale. Her son, the one she always mentioned with such quiet pride, had suffered a seizure at school. Without a word, Nina grabbed her bag and rushed toward the elevator, clearly panicked. Emily hesitated for a second, then followed. She caught up with Nina outside, where she was fumbling through her purse, eyes wide with fear. "I forgot my wallet," Nina mumbled, more to herself than anyone else. "I don't have cash for the cab." Without thinking twice, Emily stepped forward and handed the driver her own card. "Go. I'll come with you." Nina protested, but her voice cracked under the weight of worry. Emily just nodded and got in beside her. At the hospital, they waited together in the emergency wing, the clock ticking slowly. Emily bought Nina a bottle of water and sat beside her silently. There were no questions, no pity, just presence. When the doctor finally came out and said her son would be okay, Nina broke down in tears. She looked at Emily, this intern she barely knew, and whispered, "No one's ever done something like this for me." Emily smiled gently, saying nothing about who she was. But inside, her heart ached, not from discomfort, but from awakening. In that moment, everything she thought she knew about value, dignity, and strength began to change. 3 months had passed, and Emily's internship was coming to an end. She had grown close to the women she once saw as case studies. Now, they were friends, mentors, and mirrors reflecting the strength she never knew she lacked. The office, once foreign, now felt like a second home. Still, no one knew her true identity. That changed on her final day. A routine staff briefing was called in the small meeting room, the kind where updates were shared, and coffee flowed more freely than enthusiasm. The room was packed with employees, Latasha, Nina, Priya among them, chatting casually until a surprising figure entered. It was Richard Carter, the CEO himself. Whispers rippled across the room. Why was he here? He walked to the front, smiling as his gaze landed on Emily. She stood at the back, frozen. Her heart pounded. I want to take a moment today, he said, to acknowledge someone special. You all know her as Emma Lane, the quiet intern who's been with us for 3 months. Murmurs of recognition. A few nods. But what you didn't know, is that she's also my daughter. Gasps filled the room. All eyes turned to Emily. Latasha's jaw dropped. Nina blinked, stunned. Priya's hand flew to her mouth. Emily stepped forward, voice trembling but sure. I came here to learn about women in the workplace. I expected data. I found stories, real ones. You showed me strength, sacrifice, and humanity that I'll carry forever. No title, no bloodline could have taught her what these women had. Months later, the boardroom looked different, not in appearance, but in energy. Where once Emily had sat silently taking notes, she now sat confidently at the table, presenting her first official proposal to the executive team. Her title was new, Director of People and Inclusion, but her mission was deeply personal. Her presentation was called The Women Who Hold Us Up. It detailed a new company-wide initiative, flexible hours for single parents, on-site childcare support, mental health counseling, and skill-based training programs for underrepresented women in the workforce. It wasn't a symbolic gesture, it was a structural shift. Some board members raised eyebrows at the cost. Emily met each concern with quiet conviction. I've worked beside the women who keep this company alive. They don't complain. They survive. It's time we help them thrive. The vote passed unanimously. After the meeting, Emily didn't head back to her new office. Instead, she walked down to the operations floor, carrying a tray with 4 coffees. She found Latasha typing fiercely at her desk, Priya sorting reports, and Nina laughing with a new hire. They looked up, surprised. Emily grinned. You didn't think I'd forget you, did you? They laughed, hugged, and for a moment, time stood still. Emily had come in as a stranger, hiding her name, her privilege, and her purpose. But now, she stood as one of them, changed not by status, but by connection. And in their eyes, she had become more than a CEO's daughter. She had become real.